Dr. Kim Hyun-woo was drinking his third cup of coffee when the radio started screaming. Not the usual static or interference that plagued the Seoul Aerospace Research Institute on rainy days like this one. This was different. This was a signal from space that made every piece of equipment in the building go crazy. He nearly dropped his mug as alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed red across the quantum physics lab where he had been working alone, reviewing data from their latest particle acceleration experiments. The coffee sloshed over his notes as he rushed to the main communication array. Engineer Park So-min was already there, her hands flying over the control panels. Her usually perfect ponytail had come loose, black hair falling across her face as she worked. She looked up at Hyun-woo with wide eyes. "Professor Kim, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "This signal is not from Earth. It is not from anywhere in our solar system." Captain Lee Jin-ho burst through the doors of the communication center, still, wearing his Korean Space Force uniform, his boots squeaking on the polished floor. Behind him came Dr. Choi Hai-won, the xenobiologist who had been giving a lecture to graduate students when the alarm started. "What is the situation?" Jin-ho demanded, his military training taking over. His sharp eyes scanned the room, taking in the chaos of flashing screens and bewildered technicians. So-min pointed to the main display screen. "We are receiving a transmission. It is using basic radio waves, but the source is beyond our galaxy. The signal is incredibly strong. Whatever sent this has technology we cannot understand." Hae-won pushed her glasses up her nose and studied the data flowing across the monitors. As the only person in South Korea who specialized in theoretical alien biology, she had always dreamed of this moment. Now that it was happening, her stomach felt like it was full of butterflies. "Can we decode the message?" Hyun-woo asked, setting his coffee mug down on a counter already crowded with equipment. "Already working on it," So-min replied. Her fingers danced across the keyboard as she ran the signal through various translation programs. "The mathematics are universal. Prime numbers, basic physics constants. They are trying to establish communication." The room fell silent except for the humming of computers and the distant rumble of Seoul traffic outside. Rain continued to streak the windows as the four scientists watched the screen fill with symbols and patterns. Then the symbols began to change. They shifted and morphed until they became something recognizable. Korean letters appeared on the screen, followed by English, then Chinese, then dozens of other Earth languages. "Hello, people of Earth," the message began. "I am Veltar of the Luminary Empire. We are contacting you in our darkest hour. The galaxy faces extinction, and we require assistance from all intelligent species, no matter how primitive." Hae-won winced at the word primitive. Jin-ho's jaw tightened. So-min and Hyun-woo exchanged glances. The message continued, and with each word the situation became clearer and more terrifying. The Luminary Empire was part of something called the Galactic Council. 17 different alien species, each with technology that made human science look like stone tools. They had been trying to stop something called the Void Cascade for 3 years. "The Void Cascade consumes everything," Veltar explained through the transmission. "It turns matter into nothingness. It grows stronger with each system it devours. We have lost 12 sectors already. Trillions of beings have died." Images flooded the screen, star systems that had been reduced to empty space, planets that had simply vanished, leaving not even debris behind, massive alien ships that looked like cities in space, all destroyed by something that appeared as a dark wave washing across the galaxy. "We have tried everything," the message went on. "Our greatest scientists, our most powerful weapons, our most advanced technology. Nothing works. The cascade adapts to everything we throw at it. It becomes stronger." So-min leaned forward in her chair. "If they are so advanced, why are they asking us for help?" As if the alien had heard her question, Veltar provided an answer. "We are contacting every species in the galaxy, even those that have barely achieved spaceflight. Perhaps a fresh perspective might see something we have missed. We are sending coordinates for a meeting. Please send representatives immediately." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the four humans staring at a screen full of star charts and navigation data. "This has to be a joke," Jin-ho said after a long silence. "Or some kind of test." Heywan shook her head. The energy readings are real. That signal traveled across millions of light years. No human technology could fake this. So what do we do? So-min asked. She looked around at her colleagues, these people she had worked with for years on projects that suddenly seemed tiny and unimportant. Hyunwoo picked up his coffee mug and drained what was left. The coffee had gone cold, but he barely noticed. His mind was racing through possibilities, equations, theories. 17 advanced alien species had failed to stop this void cascade. What could humans possibly contribute? We go, he said finally. We represent Earth at this meeting. Are you serious? Jinho asked. We know nothing about space travel beyond our own solar system. We have never met aliens before. We have no idea what we are walking into. Exactly, Haiwan said, understanding dawning in her voice. We know nothing. That might be exactly what they need. So-min was already pulling up the star charts, her engineering mind working through the navigation data. The meeting point is 3 days away if we use their provided transportation method. We would need to launch from the International Space Station. Transportation method? Jinho asked. They are sending a ship, So-min explained, pointing to additional data that had appeared on the screen. Something they call a quantum bridge transport. It will take us to their location. Hyunwoo looked around at his 3 colleagues. Haiwan was studying the biological data about the various alien species. So-min was already sketching out launch procedures. Jinho was reading the tactical information about the void cascade with the focused attention he usually reserved for military briefings. So we are really doing this? He asked. We have to, Haiwan said. If this is real, if the galaxy is really in danger, then Earth is in danger too. We cannot just ignore this. Besides, So-min added with a slight smile, how often do you get a chance to meet aliens? Jinho sighed and pulled out his phone. I need to call my commanding officer. This is going to be an interesting conversation. 3 hours later, they were on a plane to the International Space Station. The Korean government had moved faster than anyone thought possible. Emergency authorizations, diplomatic clearances, scientific credentials. The 4 of them had been officially designated as Earth's representatives to the Galactic Council. As their plane lifted off from Seoul, climbing into the storm clouds that had brought the morning rain, Hyunwoo looked out the window at the city. Below, millions of people going about their daily lives, completely unaware that the galaxy was ending, and their planet's fate now rested in the hands of 4 scientists who had never been more than a few hundred kilometers from Earth. You know, he said to his companions, when I woke up this morning, I was worried about my research deadline. Heywan laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. When I woke up this morning, the biggest question in my life was whether to have toast or cereal for breakfast. Now we are flying into space to save the galaxy, So-min added. Jinho checked his equipment one more time. No pressure at all. The plane climbed higher, carrying them toward a destiny none of them could have imagined. In a few hours, they would meet beings whose technology spanned millennia, whose civilizations were older than human agriculture, whose knowledge made Earth's greatest discoveries look primitive, and somehow they were supposed to help save them all. The alien transport ship was nothing like anything the 4 humans had imagined. It appeared next to the International Space Station without warning, simply materializing out of empty space like a magic trick. The ship was enormous, easily the size of a city block, and it seemed to be made of some kind of crystal that shifted colors in the starlight. Welcome aboard, Veltar said as they entered the transport bay. The luminary looked like a walking piece of living glass, tall and elegant with light flowing through their transparent body like liquid sunshine. Their voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once, speaking perfect Korean that somehow felt cold despite the warm words. So-min stared at everything around them with wide eyes. The walls of the ship seemed to be alive, pulsing gently with soft blue light. The floor felt solid under their feet but looked like they were walking on water. Jinho kept his hand near his sidearm, though he knew it would be useless against technology this advanced. Your species is very young. Veltar continued as they walked through corridors that seemed to stretch on forever. We were not certain you had developed enough intelligence for meaningful communication. Heywan bristled at the comment but kept her voice polite. We understand more than you might think. The crystalline being made a sound that might have been laughter. Perhaps we shall see. The journey to the main research vessel took 6 hours, though it felt like minutes. The humans watched through transparent walls as stars blurred past, them at impossible speeds. They were traveling faster than light, crossing distances that would take human ships thousands of years. The main research vessel, called Eternal Radiance, was beyond massive. It was larger than most moons, a structure of metal and energy that housed billions of beings from across the galaxy. As their transport docked, the humans could see other ships arriving. Each one was different, representing technologies and designs that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Stay close, Veltar warned as they entered the main station. Many species here have never seen beings as primitive as yourselves. Try not to touch anything important. The corridors of the station were filled with creatures that seemed impossible. Beings made of pure energy floated past them like living lightning. Creatures with too many arms and legs scuttled along the walls. Some aliens were so strange that the humans could not even tell which end was the head. They passed through a section where gravity seemed to work sideways. Jinho grabbed onto a rail to keep from falling as aliens walked casually up the walls around them. In another area, time itself seemed different. Some creatures moved so slowly they appeared frozen, while others buzzed around like hummingbirds. The Zephyrian Collective has mastered time control, Veltar explained without slowing down. They can stretch seconds into hours or compress days into moments. Very useful for research. How long have they had this technology? Hyunwoo asked, his scientist mind fascinated despite the overwhelming strangeness. Only about 50,000 of your years, Veltar replied casually. They are still considered newcomers by most standards. The humans exchanged glances. 50,000 years was longer than human civilization had existed. They entered a massive chamber that seemed to have no ceiling. It stretched up into darkness filled with floating platforms and swirling energy patterns. Thousands of aliens filled the space, all focused on holographic displays showing the progress of the Void Cascade. This is our main research center, Veltar announced. Here we coordinate all efforts to stop the cascade. A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish made of metal approached them. Are these the representatives from the primitive world? It asked in a voice like grinding gears. Earth, yes, Veltar confirmed. They insisted on observing our work. How charming, the metal jellyfish replied. Perhaps they can learn something before they are inevitably consumed. So Min watched as teams of aliens worked on solutions that seemed like pure magic. One group was building machines that folded space like paper. Another team manipulated black holes like toys. A third group seemed to be having a conversation with the fundamental forces of the universe itself. We have tried temporal barriers, explained a creature that looked like a walking tree made of silver. We attempted to build walls in time itself to stop the cascade. It consumed our barriers and used the temporal energy to move faster. Reality anchors were our next approach. Added a being that appeared to be made of living mathematics, numbers and equations floating around its form. We created devices that could rewrite the laws of physics in local areas. The cascade absorbed them and became stronger. Psionic barriers using the combined mental power of 17 worlds, continued a creature with too many eyes and a brain visible through transparent skull plates. The cascade turned our own psychic energy against us. Jinho listened to each failure with growing amazement. These beings had technology that could manipulate time, space, reality itself, and the minds of entire planets. Yet nothing worked against the Void Cascade. A new alien approached their group. This one looked almost human, except for the forearms, and skin that changed colors like a chameleon. I am Fleet Commander Nalthes of the Aegis Consortium. We have just completed construction of our latest solution. Holographic displays showed a machine the size of a planet. It was covered in weapons that could destroy stars and protected by shields that could stop galaxy-wide explosions. The construction had taken 300 years and the combined resources of 12 civilizations. Behold the ultimate cascade, Destroyer, Nalthis announced proudly. No force in the universe can withstand its power. The humans watched the recording as the massive weapon fired at an approaching void cascade. The energy beam was bright enough to outshine entire star systems. For a moment it seemed to slow the dark wave that was consuming everything in its path. Then the cascade reached the weapon. In less than 5 seconds, the planet-sized machine simply vanished. Not destroyed or broken, but completely erased from existence as if it had never been built. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Thousands of aliens stared at the display showing empty space where their ultimate weapon had been. Perhaps, Nalthis said slowly, we need to build a larger one. Jin Ho could not help himself. He raised his hand like a student in class. Excuse me, but have you tried turning it off and on again? Every alien in the chamber turned to stare at him. The silence stretched on so long that Haewon began to worry that Jin Ho had somehow offended them all. Finally, Veltar spoke. What does that mean? Well, Jin Ho said, feeling suddenly nervous under all those alien eyes. When our technology breaks, sometimes the simplest solution is to shut it down completely and restart it. Maybe you could try something basic instead of something complicated. A creature that looked like a living storm cloud made a sound like thunder. Basic solutions? We are dealing with forces that threaten the entire galaxy. This requires the most advanced technology available. Maybe that is the problem, So Min said quietly. The aliens turned their attention to her now. She felt her cheeks grow warm but continued speaking. Every solution you have tried has been very complex and very advanced. What if that is making things worse instead of better? Impossible, declared a being that appeared to be made of pure crystallized thought. Advanced problems require advanced solutions. This is the fundamental principle of all science. Hyunwoo stepped forward. Could we see the raw data from your experiments? Sometimes fresh eyes can spot patterns that others miss. The aliens looked at each other with whatever passed for skeptical expressions among their various species. Finally, Veltar gestured to a floating platform covered in holographic displays. Very well, the luminary said, but do not expect to understand most of what you see. This data represents millions of years of scientific advancement. The 4 humans gathered around the displays as terabytes of information flowed past them. Energy readings, temporal measurements, dimensional analysis, and mathematical equations that seemed to have no end. This is incredible, Haewon whispered, watching data about the biological effects of cascade exposure on 17 different alien species. Look at this pattern, So-min said, pointing to energy readings from the first cascade encounter. Every time they use advanced technology, the readings spike higher. The cascade is not just resisting their attacks, Hyunwoo realized, studying the quantum mechanics data. It is feeding on them. Jin Ho nodded slowly. So, the more complex their solution, the stronger their enemy becomes. Around them, thousands of aliens continued working on ever more elaborate plans to stop the void cascade. They built machines that could reshape galaxies and weapons that could crack planets in half. And with each new solution, the humans could see in the data that the cascade was growing stronger. We need to tell them, Haewon said. Tell us what? Veltar had approached without them noticing. We think we know why nothing is working, Hyunwoo said. The luminary's light dimmed with what might have been annoyance. You have been looking at our data for 1 hour. We have been studying this problem for 3 years. Sometimes that makes it harder to see the obvious answer, So-min replied. And what? Asked Veltar in a voice like breaking glass. Is this obvious answer? The 4 humans looked at each other. They were about to tell beings whose technology. The alien council chamber erupted in sounds that the humans had never heard before. Clicking, buzzing, harmonics that made their teeth ache, and what sounded like someone playing a piano made of crystal. They had no idea if the aliens were laughing, angry, or having some kind of mechanical breakdown. Veltar's light flickered in patterns that definitely looked irritated. Stop trying so hard? That is your scientific advice? We should simply give Up our technology and hope the problem solves itself? Not exactly, Hyunwoo said, trying to keep his voice calm despite the chaos around them. We think the problem might be that your technology is too advanced for this particular situation. A creature that looked like a walking equation made a sound like a computer crashing. Too advanced? There is no such thing as too advanced. Progress always leads to better solutions. But what if this time it does not? So-min asked. What if the Void Cascade is specifically designed to fight against advanced technology? The noise in the chamber slowly died down as more aliens turned to listen. The concept seemed to be so foreign to them that they could not process it properly. Fleet Commander Nalthes floated over to their group. You are suggesting that our millions of years of scientific development are useless against this threat? Not useless, Haewon said carefully. Just not the right tool for this job. Sometimes you need a hammer and sometimes you need a screwdriver. Using a hammer when you need a screwdriver just makes things worse. What is a screwdriver? Asked a being that looked like a living rainbow. The humans spent the next hour explaining basic tools to aliens who could build machines the size of planets. It would have been funny if the situation was not so serious. We understand your concept, Veltar finally said, but you cannot seriously suggest that primitive tools could succeed where our greatest achievements have failed. Maybe we could go somewhere quiet and show you what we mean, Jinho suggested. The aliens gave them a small research room filled with holographic displays and computers that could process the thoughts of entire civilizations. The four humans ignored all the advanced equipment and spread out the cascade data on a simple table. Look at this timeline, So-min said, pointing to the first recorded cascade encounter. The cascade started small, about the size of a large asteroid. When the quantum architects tried to stop it with reality manipulation, it grew to the size of a moon. Here, Hyunwoo continued, the psionic dominion attacked it with concentrated mental energy from 1 billion minds. The cascade absorbed that energy and became the size of a planet. And here, Haewon added, when the temporal engineers tried to trap it in a time loop, it broke free and became large enough to consume an entire solar system. Jinho studied the pattern. Every time someone uses advanced technology against it, the cascade gets stronger. But look at these incidents where it encountered natural phenomena. He pointed to several data points where the cascade had passed through areas with simple gravitational fields, magnetic storms, or basic stellar radiation. In each case, the cascade had either remained the same size or actually gotten slightly smaller. It feeds on complexity, So-min said. The more advanced the technology, the more energy it can absorb and convert. But natural forces do not trigger this response, Haewon added. Basic physics still affects it normally. Hyunwoo nodded. We think the cascade is like a cosmic immune system. It identifies advanced technology as a threat and adapts to counter it. But simple natural forces do not register as threats. So what do you propose? Veltar asked. The luminary had been listening from the doorway, their crystalline form dim with skepticism. We guide it instead of fighting it, Jinho said. Use basic physics to redirect its path away from populated systems. Basic physics, Veltar repeated slowly. You want to stop a force that consumes star systems using basic physics. Think of it like water flowing down a hill, So-min explained. You cannot stop the water, but you can dig channels to guide where it flows. The cascade follows paths of least resistance when it is not being attacked, Hyunwoo added, pointing to the data. If we create a simpler path for it to follow, it should take that path instead of going through populated areas. For the first time since they had met the aliens, Veltar was completely silent. The other aliens who had gathered to listen also seemed stunned by the simplicity of the idea. You want to treat a galaxy-threatening force like water running off a roof, Nalthes said finally. Exactly, all four humans said at the same time. This is insane, declared a creature that looked like a floating brain in a jar. We have the power to reshape reality itself. We can manipulate time, space, matter, and energy. And you want us to use the scientific equivalent of a stone tool. Sometimes stone tools work better than laser cannons, Jinho replied. The humans spent the next several hours working out the details of their plan. They used basic mathematics that any first-year physics student would understand. Simple electromagnetic fields, basic gravitational effects, and elementary principles of attraction and repulsion. We need to build a network of field generators around the cascade, Somin explained, sketching diagrams on a piece of paper while aliens who could think in 11 dimensions watched in fascination. Nothing fancy, just simple metal rods that can create electromagnetic fields. The fields will not be strong enough to stop the cascade, Hyunwoo said, but they will be strong enough to guide it, like putting up signs on a highway. We space them out in a pattern that creates a flow of attractive and repulsive forces. Haewon added, the cascade will naturally follow the path we create because it is easier than forcing its way through. And because the technology is so simple, Jinho finished, the cascade will not recognize it as a threat to adapt against. Veltar studied their hand-drawn diagrams with what appeared to be growing horror. You want to save the galaxy with metal rods and basic magnetism. Pretty much, Somin said cheerfully. This is either brilliant or completely insane, muttered a creature that looked like a walking crystal garden. It might be both, Hyunwoo admitted. But it is worth trying. The hardest part was convincing the aliens to build simple technology. Their manufacturing systems were designed to create the most advanced possible solutions. Asking them to build basic metal rods was like asking a master chef to make toast. Our construction drones keep adding improvements, complained an engineer whose species had been building starships for 1,000,000 years. We program them to make simple rods, but they automatically upgrade the design. Now we have rods that can manipulate quantum foam and bend space-time. Can you turn off the automatic upgrades? Somin asked. Turn off automatic upgrades? The alien engineer sounded horrified. But then the technology would be primitive. That is the point, Jinho said patiently. It took them 6 hours to build their simple field generators. By alien standards, the devices were so primitive they barely qualified as technology. They were just metal rods with basic electromagnetic coils, powered by simple fusion cells and controlled by computers that could barely count to 1,000,000,000. I feel embarrassed to be seen with these devices, Veltar said, looking at the field generators like they were something unpleasant stuck to their shoe. They are not supposed to impress anyone, Haewon replied. They are supposed to work. The aliens loaded the simple devices onto cargo shuttles, still complaining about how primitive everything was. The humans had to keep stopping alien technicians from upgrading the equipment. Just because you can add quantum stabilizers does not mean you should, Somin said for the 20th time. But they would make the devices 17% more efficient, protested an alien who looked like a mechanical spider. And that 17% improvement would probably make the cascade stronger, Hyunwoo replied. As they prepared to deploy their solution, word spread throughout the research station about what the humans were planning. Thousands of aliens came to watch, most of them clearly expecting to witness a spectacular failure. The primitive species thinks they can solve our greatest crisis with metal rods, one alien said to another. At least it will be educational for them when it fails, the second alien replied. Jinho overheard the conversation and smiled. You know what? He said to his teammates. I am starting to like the idea of surprising them. Think it will work? Haewon asked quietly. Hyunwoo looked at their simple diagrams and basic calculations. Everything made sense according to elementary physics. The plan was so simple that there was almost nothing that could go wrong. Yes, he said. I think it will work. Somin checked the positioning coordinates one last time. The next cascade is approaching the Kepler sector. 4 inhabited planets, over 2 billion people. All alien people, Veltar reminded them, who will die if your primitive solution fails. It will not fail, Jinho said confidently. We have got this. The crystalline being's light flickered with what might have been amusement. Your species certainly has confidence. We have more than confidence, Hyunwoo said, watching the deployment shuttles launch toward the approaching cascade. We have physics on our side. The Kepler sector hung in space like a collection of glowing jewels against the black canvas of the universe. 4 beautiful worlds orbited a warm yellow star, their surfaces sparkling with the lights of massive cities and floating space stations. Over 2 billion beings called these planets home, living their daily lives in complete peace, unaware that death was racing toward them through the darkness between stars. The void cascade appeared first as a tiny dark spot against the distant starfield, barely visible even to the most powerful alien telescopes. But within minutes, the spot had grown large enough to block entire constellations from view. The thing moved with terrible purpose, consuming everything in its path and leaving absolutely nothing behind except empty space where star systems used to exist. In the command chamber of the research vessel Eternal Radiance, thousands of aliens, from dozens of species, watched their enemy approach with growing horror. The cascade was already larger than any they had encountered before, easily the size of Earth's moon, and still growing as it fed on the cosmic dust and radiation it encountered. Admiral Zix Hala of the Star Dominion floated at the center of the chaos, her 8 tentacles working dozens of control panels at the same time. Her species had been fighting wars across the galaxy for over 50,000 years, conquering enemies and defending allies with weapons that could crack planets in half. But nothing in their vast military experience had prepared them for an enemy that became stronger every time they attacked it. "Deploy the reality anchor array immediately," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "All fleet vessels maintain maximum safe distance. If this weapon fails, we evacuate the entire sector within 1 hour." The 4 humans stood on an observation platform watching as the alien fleets moved into their attack formation. Hundreds of warships, each one the size of a large city, arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the approaching cascade. The coordination was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, representing millions of years of military evolution and technological advancement. At the center of the formation, something began to unfold that made the humans gasp in wonder and fear. The reality anchor array looked like an enormous crystalline flower blooming in space, its petals spreading across thousands of kilometers. The device sparkled with internal lights that hurt to look at directly, energies so powerful they made the air around the observation windows shimmer like heat waves. "What exactly does that thing do?" Somin asked, watching as the array continued to expand, becoming larger than most space stations the humans had ever imagined. Veltar stood beside them, their crystalline body glowing with pride despite the desperate situation. "The reality anchor array represents the greatest achievement of our combined civilizations. It can literally rewrite the fundamental laws of physics within a localized area of space. Matter, energy, time, gravity, even the basic forces that hold atoms together, all can be modified according to our will." "You can change the laws of physics?" Haywan asked, her xenobiologist mind struggling to comprehend such power. "Within the array's operational field, we become the gods of reality itself," explained a scientist whose body appeared to be made of living starlight. "We can make it impossible for the cascade to exist by simply declaring that such entities cannot survive in our modified space." Hyunwoo studied the energy readings flowing across nearby displays. The power levels were beyond anything human science had ever achieved. The array was drawing energy from the quantum vacuum itself, tapping into forces that existed at the very foundation of the universe. "Array deployment complete," announced a technician whose species communicated through rapidly changing colors on their skin. "All systems showing optimal performance. Reality modification field generators are online and ready for activation." "Activate the array," Admiral Zix Hala ordered. "Let us end this threat once and for all." The effect was immediate and spectacular beyond description. Space around the void cascade began to change color, shifting through spectrums that had never existed before in the natural universe. The very fabric of reality rippled and bent as the aliens imposed their will on the fundamental structure of existence itself. Physics became fluid, malleable, subject to their advanced technology rather than the laws that had governed the cosmos since the beginning of time. For several long moments, it seemed as though their ultimate weapon would actually work. The void cascade slowed its relentless advance, appearing confused by the strange new reality surrounding it. The darkness that had been consuming entire star systems began to waver and fluctuate like a mirage on a hot day. Cascade advance has completely stopped, the color-changing technician reported, their skin displaying what appeared to be victory patterns. Reality modification field is stable and holding. The entity appears unable to adapt to our imposed physical laws. Cheers erupted throughout the massive command chamber. Beings from dozens of different species celebrated in their own unique ways, creating a symphony of sounds that ranged from musical harmonies to mechanical grinding to frequencies that made the humans' teeth ache. After 3 long years of desperate failure, it finally seemed they had found a way to stop their cosmic enemy. The celebration lasted exactly 47 seconds. "Wait," the technician said, their skin now rapidly cycling through colors that clearly indicated extreme alarm. "Something is happening to the array. The cascade is doing something we did not expect." The void cascade was not simply adapting to the modified reality around it. Instead, it was absorbing the reality anchor array itself, drinking in the exotic energies like a massive cosmic sponge soaking up water. The beautiful crystalline structure that had taken 3 centuries to design and build began to dissolve at the quantum level, its complex geometries breaking down into component atoms and then into pure energy. "This is impossible," whispered the scientist made of starlight, their glow dimming with shock and fear. "The array is protected by 17 different types of dimensional barriers. Nothing should be able to touch it directly. The cascade is consuming the barriers themselves," another technician reported, voice rising with panic. "It is using the array's own protective systems as fuel for its growth. Every defensive measure we built is making it stronger." The humans watched in growing horror as their enemy transformed before their eyes. The void cascade expanded from moon-sized to planet-sized in less than 60 seconds, feeding on the most advanced technology the galaxy had ever produced. The reality anchor array, which had represented the absolute pinnacle of scientific achievement, became nothing more than fuel for the very force it had been designed to destroy. "All ships retreat immediately," Admiral Zixhala commanded, her tentacles moving frantically across emergency control systems. "Maximum emergency speed. Get every vessel out of here before the entity reaches full expansion." But her warning came too late. The massively expanded cascade reached the first planet in the Kepler sector and consumed it entirely in a matter of seconds. Not destroyed, not broken apart by some cosmic explosion, but simply erased from existence as if it had never been there at all. 2,300,000,000 people gone in an instant, leaving not even the smallest piece of debris behind to mark where their world had once existed. The silence in the command chamber was complete and terrible. Thousands of beings who represented the absolute peak of galactic civilization stared at empty space where a world full of life had been thriving just moments before. Their ultimate weapon had not just failed, it had made their enemy immeasurably more powerful. "We made it worse," someone whispered from somewhere in the crowd. "Our greatest achievement made it worse than before." Admiral Zixhala's tentacles drooped in defeat, her body language conveying the despair that every being in the chamber was feeling. "Recommend immediate full evacuation of the remaining 3 planets. Activate emergency sector-wide evacuation. Protocols. We have perhaps 20 minutes before total system loss." "Wait," Jinho said, stepping forward from the observation platform. "Give us a chance to try our approach." The Admiral's tentacles snapped toward him with obvious irritation and barely controlled desperation. "Your approach? Your primitive metal, rods, and basic magnetism? After witnessing the complete failure of our most advanced technology, you still believe your simple devices can accomplish what our reality anchor array could not? Especially after witnessing that failure," Hyunwoo replied with calm confidence. "The cascade just proved our theory completely correct. The more advanced your technology becomes, the stronger it makes the enemy. We have 20 minutes before the second planet dies," Haewon added urgently. "What do you possibly have to lose by letting us try our solution?" Admiral Zixhala looked around the chamber at her defeated staff and advisors. Every face, regardless of species or physical form, showed the same expression of hopeless despair. Their greatest minds, their most powerful weapons, their most advanced technology, all had proven completely useless against an enemy that turned their own strength and sophistication against them. "Very well," she said finally, her voice heavy, with resignation. "Deploy your primitive solution immediately. At this point, nothing you do could possibly make the situation worse than it already is." News of the human success traveled faster than light across the galaxy. Within hours, every civilized world knew that the most primitive species in the Galactic Council had saved the Kepler sector using technology that barely qualified as advanced by their own standards. The reaction was exactly what the four humans had expected: complete disbelief followed by desperate hope. 43 more void cascades have been detected, Admiral Zixhala announced to the emergency assembly. They are approaching populated systems throughout the galaxy. At current expansion rates, we have perhaps 6 months before they consume everything. The command chamber had been expanded to accommodate representatives from every known species. Beings who had never spoken to each other before now shared the same desperate need for salvation. The humans found themselves at the center of attention in a way that made them deeply uncomfortable. "The humans must teach us their methods immediately," declared High Counselor Murthak of the Wisdom Collective, a being whose body appeared to be made of crystallized thought. "Every moment of delay costs lives." "It is not that simple," Haywan tried to explain. "Our approach works because it is simple. If you make it more complex, it will stop working." "Nonsense," replied a representative of the quantum architects, their form shifting between dimensions as they spoke. "All technology can be improved. We will enhance their primitive methods with our advanced understanding." So-Min shook her head. "That is exactly what you cannot do. The moment you try to improve our solution, you turn it into something the Cascade can absorb and use against you." The aliens struggled to understand this concept. For millions of years, their entire civilization had been built on the principle that more advanced always meant better. The idea that primitive technology could be superior was so foreign to them that many species literally could not process. "Perhaps a demonstration would help," Veltar suggested. "Show us how your simple devices work against a smaller cascade." "There are no smaller cascades," Jinho pointed out. "Every one we have detected is already massive." "Then we must move quickly," Admiral Zixhala decided. "Deploy human teams to as many threatened systems as possible. Begin immediate construction of their guidance devices." This created a new problem that none of them had anticipated. The alien manufacturing systems were designed to create the most advanced possible solutions. When they tried to build simple metal rods, the automated systems kept upgrading them. "Our fabrication units cannot comprehend the concept of deliberately primitive technology," complained Chief Engineer Kolvash of the Industrial Collective. "Every time we program them to build basic electromagnetic generators, they automatically add improvements. Quantum enhancement fields, dimensional stabilizers, temporal regulators. We cannot make them stop upgrading." "Can you build them by hand?" Hyunwoo asked. The question created another moment of stunned silence. These were species that had automated everything centuries ago. The concept of manual manufacturing was as foreign to them as creating fire by rubbing sticks together. "Hand construction would take too long," Kolvash replied. "We need thousands of guidance devices deployed across." 6 months after the revelation about the Cascade Builders, the galaxy was a very different place. The massive gateway structure hung in the void between star systems, silent and waiting. No further communication had come through, but everyone knew that something fundamental had changed in the universe. The four humans who had started it all found themselves in the strange position of being the most famous people in galactic history. Their names were known on worlds they had never visited, spoken by species they had never met. But fame was not what interested them most about their new situation. "The test results from the Zephyrian students are remarkable," Dr. Haywan said, reviewing data on her simple tablet computer while sitting in what was now called the Human Integration Center on the research station. "They are actually learning to think intuitively. Brain scans show new neural pathways forming." The center had grown from a single room to an entire section of the massive alien research vessel. Human teachers worked with alien students from dozens of species, teaching them to approach problems with what had become known as primitive thinking. So-min looked up from her own work, where she was teaching a group of quantum architects how to build simple machines with basic tools. The industrial collective just reported success with their first manually constructed guidance system. It took them 3 weeks to build something our team could make in 3 hours, but they built it themselves without any automation. Progress, Hyunwoo said with satisfaction. He was working on lesson plans for what aliens called fundamental problem-solving theory, but humans simply called common sense. The courses were now mandatory in universities throughout the galaxy. Captain Jin Ho, now promoted to Admiral of the first joint human-alien exploration fleet, entered the center carrying reports from across the galaxy. 47 star systems have successfully deployed their own guidance networks using mixed construction teams. No human supervision required. Any problems with over-engineering? So-min asked. Only 3 cases this month, Jin-ho replied with a grin. The psionic dominion tried to add telepathic enhancement to their electromagnetic generators, but their human advisors caught it before deployment. The changes went far beyond just learning to build simple technology. The entire social structure of galactic civilization was evolving. Species that had not spoken to each other for millennia were now working together on joint projects. The shared experience of learning to think like humans had created bonds between civilizations that had been impossible before. The cultural exchange program reports are fascinating, Haewon said, pulling up holographic displays showing interaction patterns between species. Beings who used to consider each other inferior are now collaborating on research projects. The temporal engineers are working with the agricultural collective to develop better farming techniques using basic crop rotation principles. Who would have thought that teaching advanced aliens to think like farmers would improve galactic diplomacy? Hyunwoo mused. Veltar approached their group, the luminary's crystalline form now displaying patterns that the humans had learned indicated genuine friendship rather than polite tolerance. The council has reached a decision about the gateway situation. Let me guess, Jin-ho said. They want to send a massive fleet with the most advanced technology available to make contact with the Cascade Builders. Actually, no, Veltar replied, their light patterns shifting to what appeared to be amusement. They want to send a small exploration ship crewed by humans and their alien apprentices. Simple technology, basic communication methods, and what you call common sense approaches to first contact. The 4 humans looked at each other with expressions of surprise and pride. 6 months ago, the aliens had considered human technology barely worthy of notice. Now they were being asked to lead the most important mission in galactic history. When do we leave? So-min asked. The ship is ready now, Veltar said. A simple vessel by our standards, but highly advanced by yours. Just advanced enough to reach the gateway safely, but simple enough that the Cascade Builders will not see us as a threat. Within hours, they were aboard the exploration vessel, New Horizon, a ship that represented everything they had taught the galaxy about appropriate technology. It had faster-than-light engines for travel but simple radio communications for contact, advanced life support systems to keep the mixed crew alive, but basic navigation computers that relied on mathematics rather than reality manipulation. The crew was equally balanced. Admiral Jin-ho commanded the mission, with Captain So-min as his chief engineer. Dr. Hyunwoo served as the science officer, while Dr. Haewon handled communications and cultural analysis. Their alien crew members were all graduates of the human training programs, beings who had learned to think simply while retaining their advanced knowledge. The journey to the gateway took 3 days. As they approached the massive structure, long-range sensors detected energy patterns that suggested the Cascade Builders were aware of their arrival. Receiving a transmission, reported Lieutenant Kexra, a young luminary who had become So-min's best student in basic engineering. Simple radio frequency, just like the first contact protocol humans developed. Let me hear it, Jin-ho ordered. Welcome, New Horizon, the voice said in perfect Korean, then repeated the message in the languages of every crew member aboard. We have been waiting for you. This is Admiral Jin-ho of Earth and the Galactic Council. Jinho replied using their basic radio system. We request permission to approach and establish communication. Permission granted. Follow the guidance beacons to docking bay 7. Simple lights appeared in space around the gateway, creating a path that led to an opening in the massive structure. No advanced guidance systems, no reality manipulation, just basic navigation lights that any human pilot could follow. They are using the same approach we taught the galaxy, Heywan observed. Simple, effective, easy to understand. The docking bay was enormous, large enough to hold ships the size of cities. But their simple exploration vessel was guided to a smaller area clearly designed for more modest visitors. As they settled into the docking clamps, they could see other ships around them, all of similar size and apparent technology level. We are not the only ones who passed the test, Hyunwoo realized. The airlock cycled open, and they found themselves face to face with the Cascade Builders for the first time. The beings were tall and graceful, with forms that seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy. They moved with the confidence of a species that had mastered the universe, but they approached the mixed human-alien crew with what appeared to be genuine respect. I am Coordinator Zethmaran, their leader said, speaking through a simple translation device rather than advanced telepathy. We welcome you to the testing station. Testing station? So-Min asked. This galaxy was one of 47 we have been monitoring, Zethmaran explained as they walked through corridors that combined advanced architecture with surprisingly simple design principles. Most galactic civilizations reach a point where they become so focused on technological advancement that they lose the ability to solve basic problems. They usually destroy themselves or stagnate into irrelevance. But our galaxy passed the test? Heywan asked. Your galaxy had something special, Zethmaran replied. A young species that maintained simple thinking while developing advanced capabilities. Humans provided the key that unlocked the potential of older civilizations. They entered a vast chamber filled with representatives from dozens of other galaxies, all species that had passed similar tests. The diversity was incredible, but they all shared one common trait: the ability to think simply when faced with complex problems. Welcome to the Intergalactic Council, Zethmaran announced. You have earned your place among the mature civilizations of the universe. Admiral Jinho looked around at the assembled beings, then back at his crew of humans and aliens who had learned to work together by embracing simplicity. What happens now? He asked. Now you help us test other galaxies, Zethmaran said. Share your knowledge of balanced thinking with civilizations throughout the universe. Teach them what your species taught your own galaxy. That simple solutions can solve complex problems, Hyunwoo suggested. That wisdom is not measured by technological advancement alone, the Cascade Builder replied. That the most sophisticated civilizations are those that know when not to be sophisticated. Dr. So-Min smiled and looked at her teammates, these friends who had saved the galaxy by refusing to overthink the problem. So basically, she said, you want us to travel the universe teaching aliens to be more like humans? In the most important ways, yes, Zethmaran confirmed. The 4 original members of Earth's first contact team exchanged glances. They had started this adventure as minor scientists and military officers from a small country on a primitive world. Now they were being asked to become teachers to the entire universe. Sounds like an interesting challenge, Jinho said. We have got this, they all said together. And for the first time in cosmic history, those words carried the weight of universal truth. The greatest lesson the galaxy had ever learned was about to become the greatest gift they could give to the universe. Sometimes the most advanced solution is knowing when not to be advanced at all. And sometimes